You see the steel cut through bamboo with a sound like tearing silk, and you think you are watching talent. You look at a master moving with the fluidity of water and the force of a landslide, and you tell yourself this is magic, or genetics, or some gift you were simply born without. But that assumption is a lie, and it is a dangerous one, because it gives you an excuse to stay exactly where you are. What you are actually seeing is not magic. It is the echo of 10,000 choices made in the dark. It is the result of steel folded upon itself, beaten in the heat and cooled in the water until the metal literally forgets how to be weak. We live in an age that is obsessed with the reveal. We want the trophy, the viral moment, the sudden wealth, and the strength of the mountain without ever climbing the path. We want the stillness of the deep ocean, but we panic the moment we step into a storm. But real strength, the kind that survives when your world collapses, is not found in the grand gesture. It is found in the microscopic. The legendary swordsman Miyamoto Musashi, a man who walked the length of Japan undefeated, famously said that there is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, or quicker. Everything is within. This is the uncomfortable truth we have to face before we can move forward. To build massive mental strength, you do not need a new app or a retreat in the mountains. You need to conquer the trivial. You must master the tiny, silent habits that define the samurai code. These are not interruptions to your real life. They are your training. They are the dojo. So before we walk through these habits, I have to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest with the answer. If the storm broke this very instant, if you lost your job, your status, or your safety today, would you stand rooted like an ancient pine, or would you scatter like dead leaves in the wind? Hold that answer in your mind, because we are going to
change it. The first habit is the foundation of all awareness, known as Zanshin, or the discipline of the finish. In the modern world, most of us walk through life half asleep. You finish a task and your brain is already rushing to the next distraction, the next notification, the next dopamine hit. You are physically present, but spiritually absent, and in the eyes of the samurai, a warrior who is absent is already a dead warrior. Zanshin translates roughly to lingering mind. It is a state of total, sustained awareness that continues even after the stroke is delivered. It means you do not relax your guard just because the conflict seems over. Now, you might wonder how you practice a sword fighting technique in a modern office or an apartment. It is simpler than you think, but it requires a level of attention most people refuse to give. Look at the door you just walked through. When you closed it, did you let it slam shut while you walked away, or did you guide the handle all the way to the latch until you heard the mechanical click? When you take off your shoes at the end of the day, do you kick them off into a pile, or do you place them side by side, aligned and ready for the next use? This sounds trivial, almost ridiculous, but here is the part most people miss. It is not about the shoes. It is about the structure of your mind. If you cannot command your brain to focus on the simple act of closing a door, how do you expect to command it when you are in a crisis? If you are sloppy with the small things, you are training your brain to be sloppy with the big things. Treating every object and every action with reverence trains your spirit in reverence. It closes the open loops in your mind. From this external discipline, we move to the internal state. The second habit is Fudoshin, or the habit of the stone. There is a biological reality here that we often ignore. You cannot build a strong mind inside a soft, chaotic vessel. Watch yourself the next time you are
standing in line at the grocery store or sitting in a meeting. Watch what your body does when you are bored or anxious. You fidget, you scratch, you shift your weight from foot to foot. You pull out your phone just to have something to do with your hands. You are leaking energy. You are displaying a lack of Fudoshin, the immovable mind. The samurai practiced sitting in perfect stillness, not to torture themselves, but to teach the nervous system that the will is the master, not the impulse. The habit here is deceptively simple, but difficult to execute. Stand still. When you are listening to someone, do not nod incessantly like a bobblehead to show you agree. Do not tap your foot. anchor yourself to the earth. Imagine you are a mountain. In that physical stillness, something interesting happens to your psychology. The mental chatter slows down. The anxiety about what you should say next evaporates. You become formidable. People can feel the weight of a person who can simply be. When you stop moving continuously, you signal to your primal brain that you are safe, you are in control, and you are not a prey animal looking for an escape route. Once the body is still, we have to tame the beast that lives in the mouth. This brings us to the third habit, the habit of the sheath. There is an old warrior proverb that says, "The mouth is the gate of misfortune." We have all met the weak man who babbles to fill the air. He talks to seek approval, to explain himself, to make sure everyone understands his perspective. He is terrified of silence, because in silence, he has to face himself. The strong man, however, speaks only when his words are heavier than the silence. Musashi taught that the sword remains in the sheath until it is absolutely necessary to draw it. If you draw your sword for no reason, you dull the blade and you reveal your technique to your enemy. Your words are the same. Every time you speak unnecessarily, you dull the blade of your intent. Practice the tiny habit
of the pause. In a conversation, when someone finishes speaking, wait 2 full seconds before you respond. Most people are just waiting for their turn to speak, but you are going to listen. You are going to keep the sword in the sheath. This creates a vacuum that draws people in. It makes your words land with impact. When you finally do speak, it signals that you have processed the information, that you are not reacting emotionally, but responding strategically. Now that we are silent and we are still, we can finally observe the world as it actually is. And often, the world is uncomfortable. This leads to the fourth habit, the habit of the rain, or radical acceptance. In the text of the Hagakure, it is written that there is something to be learned from a rainstorm. When you meet a sudden shower, you try not to get wet. You run quickly along the road. You duck under the eaves of houses. But you still get wet. The only difference is that you are now wet, out of breath, and frustrated. When you are resolved from the beginning, you will not be perplexed. You accept the rain. The habit here is the absolute refusal to complain. Do not complain about the cold. Do not complain about the traffic. Do not complain about the fatigue. This is where the risk quietly increases for most people. We build a narrative of victimhood around minor inconveniences. We ask, why is this happening to me? Why is the internet slow? Why is this driver so incompetent? The moment you ask those questions, you are validating a worldview where you are the victim of your environment. The warrior's mind accepts the rain as rain. He accepts the delay as time. He removes the emotional spike from the inconvenience. This is not about being passive. It is about resource management. If you spend your mental energy fighting reality, screaming at the rain for being wet, you have no energy left to navigate the storm. When you stop fighting the facts, you gain the power to use them. We are climbing higher now. The air is getting thinner, and the habits are becoming sharper, cutting closer to the ego. You have learned to finish the task, to stand like stone, to keep your counsel, and to accept the nature of the world. Now, we have to talk about the thing you fear most. We have to talk about failure. The fifth habit is the habit of the reset. There is a Japanese proverb, Nana korobi ya oki. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It sounds like a cliché, but the application is technical. The master is not the one who never falls. The master is the one who recovers faster than anyone else. In our modern lives, a mistake can ruin your entire day. A bad morning interaction can spiral and ruin your week. This is fragility. This is a glass mind that shatters at the first impact. The warrior builds the habit of the immediate reset. Let's say you lost your temper. It happened. It's over. Breathe. Reset. Begin again. You missed a workout? Do not create a story about how you are lazy. Reset. Begin again. The gap between the error and the correction is where mastery lives. You need to shrink that gap, make it instant. Do not carry the failure of the morning into the afternoon. The sun that rises tomorrow is a new sun, but the breath you take right now is a new breath. But how do we maintain this focus when the world is screaming for our attention? This brings us to the sixth habit, the habit of the arrow. This is the practice of ichigo zamai, or single-mindedness. Imagine a tea master pouring hot water. He does not think of the scroll on the wall. He does not worry about the politics of the clan or the price of tea. He pours. The universe exists only in the stream of hot water falling into the cup. That assumption sounds logical, that we can multitask, that we can do 10 things at once to be productive. But until you look closer, you don't realize that you are scattering your spirit. You are doing 10 things poorly instead of one thing with mastery. The habit is this: do one thing.
When you walk, just walk. When you read, just read. When you fight, fight. Do not let the mind wander to the future or the past. The arrow does not look left or right. It flies true to the heart of the target. If your mind is in the then, you will be cut down in the now. This singular focus builds a density of presence that commands respect. When you are fully with someone, they feel it. When you are fully in your work, the quality shifts from adequate to excellent. Now, I want you to pause and look at your hands. Turn them over. Look at the lines in your palms. Ask yourself, are these the hands of a builder creating a legacy, or are they the hands of a beggar waiting for the world to give you what you have not earned? The silence you feel right now is the truth. Do not run from it. We are about to cross into the habits that define your character when no one is watching. If you are a builder, you must build in the dark. This brings us to the seventh habit, the habit of the shadow, or kage. In the West, we are trained to seek applause. We post our workouts, we broadcast our overtime, we make sure the boss sees the email timestamp. But the samurai understood something deeper about human nature. The moment you perform for an audience, you are no longer the master of your art, you are a servant to their approval. The concept of the shokunin, the craftsman spirit, demands a relentless pursuit of perfection in the details, even if, and especially if, no one sees them. Why does a master swordsmith polish the part of the blade that is hidden inside the wooden handle? No one will see it. It will be covered in glue and wrapped in leather. He polishes it because he knows it is there. His spirit knows. The habit is excellence in the dark. It is the refusal to cut corners just because you can get away with it. And this is why the advice sounds right, but can still be dangerous. We tell people to fake it till they make it, but the warrior knows that faking it rots the soul.
When the camera is off, when the applause is gone, how do you work then? Practice this today. Make your bed perfectly, with hospital corners, when no one will enter your room. Organize your digital files when no one will check your computer. This builds a reservoir of self-trust. It tells your deep mind that you are a person of honor, not for the crowd, but for the code. You are proving to yourself that your standards are internal, not external. And once you trust yourself in the dark, you become untouchable in the light. But what if you lose it all? What if the worst actually happens? This leads us to the eighth habit, the most confronting of them all, the habit of the skull, Shino Kakugu. The samurai carried the knowledge of death in his obi, tucked right alongside his swords. Bushido is often defined simply as the way of dying. To the modern ear, this sounds morbid. We hide death, we sanitize it, we pretend we have forever. But the warrior knows that the delusion of immortality makes us weak. It makes us procrastinate. it makes us petty. To the warrior, if you have already accepted your death, you have nothing left to lose. You have no fear of embarrassment because you are already a ghost. You have no fear of failure because the worst has already been accepted. The habit is to use death as a lens, not a source of fear. Every morning, the samurai would visualize his own end by arrow, by sword, by wave, by fire, so that when the moment came, he would not hesitate. You must modernize this. Before you engage in a petty argument with your spouse or a stranger online, ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my last hour? When you hesitate to take a risk because you might look foolish, ask, if I were to die tonight, would I care about looking foolish? Death is the ultimate clarifier. It burns away the trivial. It sharpens the edges of your life. The data doesn't fail. Our interpretation does. We think we have time. We don't. Do not fear the end. Carry it with you.
Let it make the colors of your life brighter and your decisions faster. We reach the final stone now, the final cut that binds all the others together and breathes life into the machine. The ninth habit is the habit of the first breath, known as kicha. This is the habit of ferocious gratitude. In the feudal era, a warrior woke up not knowing if he would see the sunset. Violence was sudden and absolute. To wake up was a gift. To have rice to eat was a miracle. To have limbs that moved was a victory. Compare that to the modern morning. We wake up entitled. We feel the world owes us a good day, a smooth commute, a polite barista. This entitlement is a poison. It softens the belly and dulls the eye. You feel you are owed a good life, but the universe owes you nothing. The habit is this. Before your feet hit the floor in the morning, acknowledge the breath. Acknowledge the sheer statistical improbability that you are here, awake, and capable of fighting another day. Shift your state from need to have. When you operate from a place of abundance, you are dangerous. You are not desperate. You do not cling. You strike with precision because you are already full. These are the 9 cuts, the finish, the stone, the sheath, the rain, the reset, the arrow, the shadow, the skull, and the first breath. There is no secret beyond this. There is no hidden scroll that will give you superpowers. There is only the lifting of the foot and the placing of it down, again and again. You realize now that the mastery you seek is not a destination. It is a manner of traveling. It is the way you lace your boots. It is the way you greet the morning. It is the way you endure the night. The old self, the one who seeks comfort, the one who seeks applause, the one who is terrified of the rain, must die so that the warrior may live. Musashi wrote in his final days to investigate this thoroughly. Investigate your life. Where are you leaking power? Which of the 9 cuts have you neglected? If you...
The domino effect is subtle but devastating. You will continue to start projects and never finish them. You will continue to seek validation from strangers. You will remain fragile, breaking every time the world doesn't go your way. You will live a life of reaction, bouncing off the walls of your own existence like a moth in a jar. But if you commit to the path, the change is absolute. You stop leaking energy. You stop fearing judgment. You become a beacon in the night, not because you are loud, but because you are burning with a quiet, intense purpose. You have the map. You have the tools. You have the code. The rest is up to you. No one can walk this path for you. I can point the way to the mountain, but I cannot carry you up the slope. You must carry the weight. You must bear the cold. But know this, you are capable of more than you can imagine. The limits you feel are illusions. They are shadows cast by fear. Step through the shadow. Strike the flint. Light the fire. Keep it burning day after day, habit after habit. The sword is in your hand. The path is before you. I leave you with this final cut, the question that will echo in the silence of your room and in the noise of the battlefield, the question that determines everything. When the silence takes you, when the applause fades, when there is no one left to impress, and you are left alone with the beating of your own heart, who will you be? Walk on. The way awaits.